Let me give you a couple of stories here. Germany is now moving to reactivate the coal plants because they're afraid Russia is going to cut off the gas. The Swiss are now preparing for gas shortages and are looking at rationing their fuel. The world is learning a lesson. Now, let me take you to Sri Lanka, because this is the lesson that we should all learn today. You might not be familiar with the island nation of Sri Lanka other than its name, but it is the dark foreshadowing of things to come in this great reset-bound world. 22 million people inhabit Sri Lanka. 22 million people are now struggling to survive. They're now facing the worst economic crisis they have ever encountered since declaring independence in 1948. The government is now all but bankrupt. They're in default on foreign debt. They can't afford critical imports to sustain their people. Medicine has now become too expensive or scarce to get a hold of. Fuel prices on this little island are out of control. It began to spiral out of control as long lines formed at gas stations. Then violent brawls would sometimes break out between people and the military and the police holding them back. Food prices skyrocketed. Food prices became unsustainable when gas went through the roof. Now Sri Lanka is on the brink of chaos. Videos have emerged of starving and desperate people attacking others out in the street. Everything culminated this weekend as thousands of angry rioters stormed the presidential palace and forced the resignation of their leader. Sri Lanka. I mean, I don't know anything about Sri Lanka. Why would I care about Sri Lanka? Here's what happened to Sri Lanka. There was an IMF bailout package, and it was really Sri Lanka's final option for recovery. But a few days ago, the IMF walked away from the deal. Now, if you know about Sri Lanka, or you happen to, have relatives in Sri Lanka, you're wondering what I'm wondering. Why? They did everything they were supposed to do. They played by the rules as ordered. So why is the global financial system now abandoning Sri Lanka? A few short years ago, to the global economic elite, Sri Lanka was the jewel of Asia. The World Economic Forum showered them with praise. In one of their puff pieces highlighting Sri Lanka's leadership of the rest of the world, the article was titled, "This is how we will make Sri Lanka rich by 2025. That was 4 years ago, and now they're bankrupt. So what happened? Well, the usual crap that we hear from the overlords in Davos, and it was all described in that WEF article. Sri Lanka was to concentrate on a social economy, spending millions in the transformation to a new kind of capitalism. They would double down on green energy. Any of this sound familiar? How about this? Sri Lanka cut taxes, but also didn't cut spending. In fact, in order to fuel the great reset of their economy, they began printing cash at unprecedented levels. Because they had a green economy they just had to serve. And because everything went green and they needed it right now, they upended their farming and agricultural production. Any of this sound familiar to anyone? Everything had to be organic and everything had to be grown with new rules. Now, the World Economic Forum said it was going swimmingly. They said, quote, "The plan is delivering impressive results. The current government has created 460,000 jobs. So you know the government doesn't create jobs. The current government created 460,000 jobs, helped more than 260,000 families secure a home. Strong progress is being made. The government is also invested to generate green energy and provide water resources for agro production. You see, look at all of the things when you just decide to build back better. Look at all the wonderful things that come. Well, that's when it first started. 4 years into it, we need to update the scorecard. This is what followed that initial push. Bankruptcy, inflation, default, shortages of food, shortages of commodities, shortages of fuel, violence in the streets. And in the end, the organizations that supported them and pushed them in that direction, the organizations like the IMF and the World Economic Forum, just walked away. WEF just ran an article reporting on how Sri Lankan public workers are now being given extra days off. Well, that's fantastic. You know why they were given extra days off? Quote, so they can grow their own food, end quote. Now, does anybody in Davos, anybody like George Soros, yes, I know some people have to be hurt, they'll be hurt. Yes, they'll lose their business or whatever, but it's a great experiment and lots of fun for me. You remember him saying that? They don't feel guilty. The IMF doesn't feel guilty. To them, entire countries are mere casualties of war in their grand experiment. It's the same thing with socialism and communism and progressivism. One by one, the experiment fails. Nations fall. Thousands, sometimes millions die or starve to death. And they never say, well, crap, geez, that was our fault. They say it wasn't done right. Well, they didn't check all of the boxes. Whatever the excuse is, it's never their fault. They observe the ashes from afar, and then they double down and try it again. Remember what they did to Sri Lanka the next time you hear Klaus Schwab say, now is time for great reset. Whenever you hear him say that, whenever you hear about Build Back Better, whenever you hear about our agricultural industry needing to go green, whenever you hear about how Russia is causing the gas prices, I want you to think Sri Lanka. Remember, Biden and John Kerry say we just have a few short years to get this done in America. Yeah. Don't worry, you'll own nothing, and you'll be happy. So far, they got the first part in Sri Lanka right. They own nothing. Now, if they could just get the happiness part, they would be set. Have you noticed also in the Netherlands? What's happening up in the Netherlands? Have you seen? The Netherlands are being forced to go green as well. The Netherlands, of course, are part of this great reset. And there's Dutch farmers. These Dutch farmers, they don't like this Green New Deal. They oppose these pollution cuts. My goodness. They just won't play along. Well, they'll get it eventually. So now the farmers in the Netherlands, the Dutch farmers, have you ever heard of anyone in the Netherlands ever getting upset at anything? They're now taking their tractors in, and they're bringing their tractors in, and they're blocking trucks. They're burning hay on the streets. They've taken crap from animals and poured it on the steps of the Capitol. This is because they can't use the fertilizer that they've been using. That nitrogen oxide and ammonia. Oh man, we can't use that because that's not natural, That's ammonia? Nitrogen? No, it's not natural. We can't do that. They say it's going to close down their farms. It will shut down their farming ability. It will cause mass starvation, they say. So we could either listen to the experts or we could listen to the people who actually grow the food and have been growing our food forever. You're right. We should probably listen to the experts. This is happening. Look for civil unrest. Look for inflation unrest. You will see this happening all over the world. This goes to something I told you in 2009 would happen. They're all going to blame the United States. In the end, they will blame the United States. And half of our own damn people will blame the United States as well. Let's put this blame right squarely where it belongs. On the shoulders of the elites that are running all of our countries. Because this is happening all over the world. They think they know better. They don't. Just stand in that truth for a while. I have much more confidence in you solving things, even though Stu and Pat didn't solve a darn thing while I was gone. Gave you 2 weeks. Not one problem has been solved.
I thought you said screw up a bunch of stuff like Sri Lanka. And I thought
right,
we were following your guidance.
Okay, yeah, no, I have more confidence in the American people than I do in any expert. I think if we would just leave this to our cities and our local governments, we would be fine. We would be fine. Government, you just do the things, there's only a handful of things. You just do those things for a while. And we're going to watch, make sure you actually secure our borders. You actually are, have you heard the latest? We're about to lose about, I think, is it a quarter of our National Guard because they won't get the vaccine? Well, why is anybody even talking about the vaccine still? So we're going to lose a lot of our National Guard because of the vaccine. 22% of the police force in San Diego, gone. Why? They wouldn't get the vaccine. So they just let go 22% of the police force. What could possibly go wrong? I mean, no, we don't need police. We're going to reimagine the police, and then we're going to do something about it. And when we do it, it's going to be great. Trust us.